Welcome back. This is the Thursday edition of All Angles here on eNCA. Now, the former ANC president, Thabo Mbeki, is in the Free State to lead the party's unity project in that province. The three-day visit, which started yesterday, aims to rebuild unity and facilitate the process of organizational renewal in the party. The Free State is struggling with factionalism, gatekeeping and manipulation of party processes. The party's provincial executive has been disbanded and replaced with an interim leadership structure. So, what's Mbeki's role in this process? To discuss this further, I'm joined now by political analyst Sanet Madonsela, who joins me now for that conversation. Sanet, so it's along the same vein, really, of what the ANC has been saying since 2017 after the conclusion of the Nasrec conference. But my goodness, has the Free State been plagued by these issues of factionalism? What can former President Thabo Mbeki achieve, honestly, along the path of unity and renewal? And I see that I think you are muted, so perhaps you start there as you give me your take of what it is that you think he might be able to achieve.
Okay, so I think that President Thabo Mbeki's visit is actually very important. You will note that for a very long time, the Ramaphosa faction didn't really have much ground in terms of the Free State and where it is. And then what is more important is more recently, President Mbeki has been making a comeback. You'll note that Cyril Ramaphosa mentioned him in terms of the SONA address, which was just earlier this year. And then, so Mbeki is basically there to strengthen the point that to strengthen the fact that the former faction is out, that new things are in, that they're there to enforce the constitution in terms of the ANC, and that they need to move forward and so on. But the ANC also needs the Free State because it's basically where they're born. It's always been symbolically linked to the Free State, and it's the only metro that they've managed to retain. So by strengthening the ANC and the Free State, you are basically strengthening their base in terms of the country.
But where do you even start, though, Sanet, given what we know about the politics of the Free State ANC, in that as soon as a conference is held in any branch, in any region, or even in the province, a new faction forms, and usually it leads to court processes. There's a whole area of law that has developed because of court actions that involve provinces such as the Free State. You also have a former provincial strongman who ascended to the national leadership of the ANC, but is now out in the cold, but is not without support in some pockets of the ANC in the Free State. So where do you even begin to try and fix this mess?
The first point that you've made is that Ace Magashule is out and that he does still have a faction, but the Ace Magashule faction is not as strong as it used to be, because if you are Secretary General, you are in charge of deployments, which means that you are in charge of appointing people to certain positions. And one of the reasons why Ace managed to maintain such a stronghold over the Free State was because he was Secretary General. But now that he's lost his position, it means that his faction is much weaker than it previously was. So by sending in President Thabo Mbeki, who's now linked to President Cyril Ramaphosa, you are basically enforcing the fact that the time for ISIS faction is out and so on. So you'll notice that there have been, yes, legal challenges and so on, but they've also been quite strong in terms of dismissing people. There was media reports about a gentleman who was campaigning for another political party, not living up to his own political party's constitution and so on. So you see them trying to tighten things, tighten the noose, and try to get rid of people who are opposed to the current faction that is in leadership so that they can prepare for the upcoming elections.
I suppose it can then also be linked to, the entirety of the country, really, in terms of the state of the ANC. One gets the feeling that something thoroughgoing and deeper needs to actually happen, particularly at the branch level, Sanet, because, the ANC always tells us that the power is in the branches, but I don't know what quality branches they have in the Free State or anywhere else in the country at the moment.
what you're saying is quite interesting because there have been a lot of talks about the branches in the Free State. So what you would notice is that while branches around the country tend to be more active, in the Free State, you tend to have branches that are more dormant. And then what happens is that these branches are only activated when it is time for conferences and so on. So I think by Mbeki coming in, they are trying to revive the importance of branches. They're trying to rebuild at a branch level, because if you do have a strong base in terms of the different branches and you have your own people in play in terms of holding the Secretary General position, you can deploy the relevant members, strengthen yourself at branch level, and then obviously at a provincial level and so on. So making your base more stronger in terms of the upcoming conferences, but also preparing for the election. So I think this is a more holistic approach that they are taking, starting from the bottom and then just building up. And I think that by taking someone like President Mbeki, who has a lot of experiences in terms of this, it's basically showing that they are trying to forge forward or move forward in terms of their path towards renewal. But whether or not it will be successful is another thing.
Lastly, Sanet, how high are the stakes, given that you've already pointed out that the Mangaung Metro is the only metro that the ANC managed to scrape through, and really, when I say scrape through, barely make the threshold and hold on to it. How high are the stakes, given also what's been happening in areas like Malutia, Pofong, where, you know, some councillors had been dismissed and there was now this breakaway that gave them a run for their money in Malutia, Pofong, and it's generally been difficult and it's been challenged in many of these municipalities. Building to 2024, how high are the stakes for this intervention by former President Thabo Mbeki?
As President Ramaphosa said, they are fighting for the soul of the country. So the stakes are quite high. This is very important to the ANC. They need to ensure that they tighten their base in terms of the smaller things so that they can build up and prepare for the elections. So this is not one of those things where they have an option for losing. They actually don't. So what they are going to try to be doing is to tighten themselves at the lower levels. They're going to try to make sure that they deploy the relevant people in terms of the provincial level. And then, because if they do lose the Free State, they basically lose everything. And then, so what do you manage as a country, or what do you manage as a political party if you've lost all the metros in the country? Because that's where a lot of decisions are made. That's where a lot of their power lies. So if your power base is weakened in terms of losing another metro, then you have lost, like, the battle for the soul of the country, as the president said.
All right, thank you for your insights here on eNCA. That's Sanet Madonsela, the political analyst, weighing in on the intervention. 3 days that former President Thabo Mbeki, former president of the ANC, will spend in the Free State, trying to help them to, you know, put flesh to this mantra of unity and renewal. They're still at it. It continues to elude the ANC years after they declared that that's the path that they'll be seeking to walk. Staying with